The drive to his apartment was quiet. Not uncomfortable, just charged. City lights passed through the windshield in soft flashes. The radio played low music I couldn't even register because my mind was louder than anything else. "What are you doing, Emily? You don't know him. You just met him." But another voice inside me answered calmly, "And yet, you feel safer with him than you have in months." Jack didn't try to fill the silence. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. He didn't reach across the console to touch me. He simply drove. That restraint made everything more intense. When the car stopped in front of a modern apartment building, my heartbeat changed rhythm. This was real. This wasn't club lights and loud music anymore. This was a decision. He turned off the engine and looked at me, not expectant, not demanding. "You can still change your mind," he said quietly. That sentence mattered more than he probably knew. Because he wasn't assuming. He was offering control back to me. I studied his face carefully. There was no rush in his eyes. No hunger that felt unsafe. Just awareness. "I know," I replied. And I meant it. We stepped out of the car. The night air felt cooler now. Sharper. As we walked toward the building entrance, I became hyper-aware of everything. The sound of my heels against pavement, the faint scent of his cologne, the steady pace of his steps beside mine. Inside the elevator, the space felt smaller. Closer. The silence heavier. I could feel his presence beside me like heat without touch. The elevator doors opened. One hallway. One door. One final moment to turn back. He unlocked it and stepped aside slightly, letting me enter first. That small gesture didn't go unnoticed. His apartment was simple, clean, organized, minimal furniture, soft lighting, large windows showing the city skyline. It didn't feel chaotic or messy. It felt calm, grounded. "Like him. Water?" he asked. "Yes." My voice sounded softer than I expected. He handed me a glass and leaned lightly against the kitchen counter, giving me space. No pressure, no sudden closeness, just distance that made the tension grow naturally. "You look like you're thinking again," he said. I exhaled slowly. "I am. About leaving?" I shook my head. "No. About how strange this feels. Strange good or strange bad? Strange honest." That made him smile slightly. "Honest is rare." We moved to the couch. Not too close at first. A safe space between us. I studied him in the softer light. Without the flashing club lights, he looked different. More human, less mysterious. But the intensity was still there. "Tell me something real," he said quietly. I hesitated. "Real how?" "Not the version you tell people. The truth." Why did that question feel intimate? More intimate than touch? I stared at the city lights outside the window. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Of me?" "No." I swallowed. "Of not being who I thought I was." He didn't interrupt. "I've always been careful," I continued. "Loyal. Predictable. I don't do impulsive things. And tonight? Tonight I don't recognize myself." There it was. The fear. The truth. He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "Maybe you're not losing yourself," he said calmly. "Maybe you're meeting a part of yourself you've been holding back." That sentence did something to me. Because deep down, I knew he was right. For years, I shaped myself around someone else's comfort. Smaller dresses, quieter opinions, safer routines. Tonight wasn't about rebellion. It was about freedom, and that realization made the air feel heavier between us. There's always a moment. The moment when distance shifts. When something invisible changes. It happened when I looked at him again. Really looked. And he looked back. Neither of us smiled this time. There was something deeper in his eyes now. Not playful, not casual, intent. He moved slowly, not toward me, but closer, just enough that the space between us felt intentional. "Emily," he said softly. My name and his voice felt different here. More personal. "If this is just about pain," he continued, "we stop." It wasn't. That surprised me. It wasn't about Ryan anymore. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about being present. With him. With myself. "It's not," I whispered. His hand lifted slightly, paused near my face, waiting. That pause meant everything. I closed the distance. Just a little. Enough. When his fingers brushed against my cheek, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't aggressive. It was slow, careful, like he was asking a question without words. And when he leaned in, he gave me time to move away. I didn't. The kiss wasn't wild. It wasn't desperate. It was soft, exploratory. Two strangers learning each other's rhythm in real time. It didn't feel wrong. That's what surprised me most. It felt mutual, equal. His hand rested lightly at my waist. Not pulling, just holding, giving me the option to step back. But I didn't want to. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just feeling. And he was right there with me. Things didn't escalate quickly. There was no frantic urgency. Instead, there were pauses. Eye contact. Breath shared between words. He kept checking in silently, with his eyes, with the way he moved, with the space he allowed. That safety made everything more intense. Because I wasn't losing control. I was choosing every second. When we finally moved toward the bedroom, it didn't feel like falling. It felt like stepping forward. Conscious. Aware. Certain. The room was dimly lit. City light spilling in through curtains. I felt exposed in a way I hadn't before, not just physically, but emotionally. This wasn't 5 years of familiarity. This was new, unscripted, and strangely, that made it honest. He touched me like I mattered. Not like I was temporary. Not like I was a distraction. Like I was there, with him. When I closed my eyes, I wasn't thinking about heartbreak. I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking about sensation. Warmth. Connection. Presence. And when we finally lay beside each other afterward, breath slowing, the world felt quiet in a way that wasn't empty. It was full. He didn't roll away. He didn't grab his phone. He stayed, his arm resting loosely around me. Not possessive, not distant, just there. I stared at the ceiling, heart still racing slightly. I didn't plan this, I said softly. Neither did I, he replied. There was no regret in his voice. No awkwardness, just truth. And as exhaustion slowly pulled me under, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. This wasn't about losing control. It was about reclaiming it. And as I drifted to sleep beside a man I had, morning light is cruel. It exposes everything the night hides. There's no music, no shadows, no protective darkness, just reality. I woke up slowly, the first thing I felt was warmth. Then weight, an arm resting across my waist. For a split second, I forgot where I was. Then memory rushed back like cold water. The club, the drive, the kiss, the choice. Jack. My eyes opened carefully. Soft daylight filtered through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. The city outside was already awake, distant traffic humming faintly. And there he was, sleeping, close enough that I could feel his steady breathing against my shoulder. His face looked different in daylight. Softer, less guarded, less mysterious, more real, and suddenly, panic flickered in my chest. What did I do? I had always judged girls who made impulsive decisions after breakups. I had always thought, I would never do that. Yet here I was, in a stranger's bed, the weight of it pressed against my ribs. Was I reckless? Weak? Trying to fill a space that shouldn't be filled yet? I slowly shifted, careful not to wake him. But his arm tightened slightly. Not forceful, instinctive, and his eyes opened. They weren't confused. They weren't distant. They focused on me immediately. Good morning, he said, voice still low from sleep. No awkward tension, no regret in his expression. Just calm. Morning, I replied quietly. We held each other's gaze for a few seconds. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't light either. This was the moment where one of us could turn it into something small. A mistake. A one-time thing. That was fun. He didn't. Instead, he asked, how are you feeling? That question surprised me. Not, did you sleep well? Not, crazy night, huh? But how are you feeling? I searched for the truth. Honest? Always. Confused, I admitted. He nodded slightly, like he expected that. About last night? Yes. Silence stretched between us, but not painfully. He didn't rush to defend himself. Didn't rush to define it. He just waited. And that patience made it harder to label what happened as careless. I don't regret it, I said slowly. But I don't fully understand it either. He studied me carefully. You don't have to understand everything immediately, he said. Some things are just moments. Moments. The word echoed in my mind. Was that all it was? Just a moment? The thought unexpectedly made my chest tighten. I wasn't supposed to want more. It was supposed to be simple. One night, 2 strangers, comfort, goodbye. But something about the way he looked at me didn't feel temporary. He didn't look like he was mentally already moving on. He looked present, still here. Do you regret it? I asked quietly. He didn't hesitate. No. The certainty in his voice did something to my heartbeat. It didn't feel like using each other, he continued. It felt like choosing each other. Choosing. That word hit deeper than he probably knew. Ryan hadn't chosen me. Not in the end. But last night, there had been choice. From both of us. Not desperation. Not pressure. Choice. And that changed everything. We eventually got out of bed. The distance between us didn't feel strange. It felt aware, like we both understood this was fragile. He made coffee while I stood near the window, watching the city below. My mind was quieter than I expected. I had thought guilt would swallow me whole. That shame would hit me hard. But instead, there was clarity. The kind that comes after you stop fighting yourself. Black or sugar? He asked from the kitchen. Black. He smiled slightly. Strong. So is coffee. He handed me the mug, and our fingers brushed lightly. The contact sent a small spark up my arm, unexpected, subtle. We sat at the small dining table. Morning light filled the room now. There was no hiding in this brightness. Are you going to disappear? I asked suddenly. The question slipped out before I could stop it. His brows lifted slightly. Is that what you expect? I don't know what to expect, I admitted. I've never done this before. Neither have I, he said calmly. I blinked. You've never, not like this. His tone wasn't defensive, just honest. I don't take strangers home, he added. That made my heart shift. Then why me? I asked before I could stop myself. The room went quieter. He didn't answer immediately. He looked at me like he was deciding how much truth to reveal. Because you weren't pretending, he said finally. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You looked like you were holding yourself together by force. That hit too close. And that made you want to, what? I asked softly. Sit next to you, he said. Not fix you. Just sit. There was no arrogance in his voice. No ego. Just something steady. And that steadiness felt dangerous in a different way. Because it wasn't temporary energy. It was grounded. After coffee, reality slowly crept back in. I had an apartment, a job, a life that didn't include him. And he had his own world too. This wasn't a fantasy. It was two separate lives intersecting unexpectedly. I should probably go, I said quietly. He nodded. Okay, no guilt, no manipulation. He walked me to the door. The hallway outside felt colder than before. Less mysterious, more real. I turned to face him. And suddenly, I was afraid. Not of him, but of this turning into something that mattered. Because if it mattered, it could hurt. Emily, he said softly. I looked up. You don't owe me anything. That sentence felt like freedom. And somehow, also like a thread pulling between us. But, he continued, if you want to see me again, I'd like that. He didn't say when, didn't say how, just left it open. I searched his face for signs of insincerity. There were none. You're not just saying that? I asked. He shook his head once. I don't say things I don't mean. Something inside my chest loosened. This wasn't dramatic. It wasn't intense. It wasn't promises of forever. It was simple, honest. I'd like that too, I said quietly. And for the first time since my breakup, hope flickered. Not desperate hope, not rebound hope, but quiet curiosity. He didn't kiss me at the door. He didn't pull me back in. He simply touched my hand gently. I'll text you, he said. I nodded. And then I walked away. The city felt different that morning. Brighter, sharper, alive. I expected to feel regret. Instead, I felt awake. I had done something completely outside the version of myself I thought I was. And I survived it. More than that, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel ashamed. I felt aware. Aware that I wasn't as predictable as I thought. Aware that heartbreak didn't define me. Aware that maybe, just maybe, I was stronger than the girl who got left in a cafe the night before. As I unlocked my apartment door, the silence didn't feel suffocating anymore. It felt neutral, because now, there was something else in my mind. Not Ryan, not loss, but Jack, and the way he said, it felt like choosing. That night wasn't about escaping pain. It was about stepping into something unknown without fear. And as I stood in my quiet apartment, I realized something unexpected. I didn't feel like I had made a mistake. I felt like I had crossed into a new version of myself. One who wasn't afraid of uncertainty. One who could let go. One who understood that sometimes, strangers enter your life not to distract you, but to wake you up. And I had no idea yet that this wasn't the end. I didn't expect him to text. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. I had prepared myself for silence. Prepared myself for that quiet disappointment that follows impulsive nights. Prepared myself to label it as a beautiful but temporary chapter. So when my phone buzzed that evening, my heart reacted before my mind could protect it. Jack, I've been thinking about your strong black coffee face all day. Dinner tomorrow? Simple, not desperate, not overly charming, just direct. And that steadiness again, it made my pulse change. I stared at the message longer than necessary. This was the moment that decided what that night would become. If I ignored him, it would stay a memory. If I replied, it would become a story. I typed slowly. Dinner sounds good. And just like that, the stranger wasn't fading. He was returning. The second meeting. The second time felt different. There was no club, no flashing lights, no heartbreak haze, just me, clear-headed, aware. I chose a simple outfit, nothing bold, nothing dramatic. I wasn't trying to prove anything this time. When I arrived at the restaurant, he was already there, standing when he saw me. That small gesture did something to my chest. "You look different," he said. "Good different?" I asked carefully. He smiled, calmer. I realized he was right. I wasn't running from anything tonight. I was walking toward something. Dinner was easy, too easy. Conversation flowed without effort. We talked about childhood memories, fears, ambitions. He told me he moved to the city because he needed a reset. I asked. He hesitated slightly. From a version of myself I didn't like. There was weight behind that sentence. But he didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to control the pace of something. I was just letting it unfold. The truth I was avoiding. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. Coffee, walks, late-night conversations. It wasn't intense in a chaotic way. It was steady, and that steadiness scared me more than anything. Because I felt something growing. Not obsession, not rebound attachment. Something quieter, more dangerous. Trust. He didn't rush physical closeness again. He didn't act like that first night defined us. In fact, sometimes it felt like we were building something backwards. Most relationships start with excitement and slowly grow into comfort. With him, comfort came first. Excitement followed naturally. One night, as we sat on his balcony overlooking the city, I finally asked the question that had been sitting inside me. "Why didn't you treat that night like nothing?" He looked at me, genuinely confused. "Because it wasn't nothing. It could have been," I whispered. "Only if we decided it was." That answer was simple, but powerful. He reached for my hand, not in passion, not in urgency, just connection. "I don't think you came into my life randomly," he said quietly. My heartbeat changed. "Don't romanticize it," I warned softly. "It was impulsive." Impulsive doesn't mean meaningless. The city lights reflected in his eyes. And for the first time, I felt something unfamiliar rise in my chest. Not fear of being alone. Fear of caring. Because caring meant risk. And I had just survived heartbreak. Was I really ready to step into something new? The past comes back. Life doesn't allow peace without testing it. 2 months after that night, Ryan called. I hadn't heard his voice since the cafe. It felt like reopening a healed wound. "I miss you," he said. Words once would have shattered me. But now, they felt distant. "I needed time to think," he continued. "I made a mistake. Funny how regret shows up when you stop waiting for it." There was a long silence. Old Emily would have softened. Old Emily would have considered going back. But I wasn't her anymore. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said calmly. And I meant it. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't question myself. Because something had shifted inside me. I wasn't the girl afraid of losing someone. I was the woman who had chosen herself, even if it meant walking into uncertainty. And somehow, that uncertainty had led me to Jack. The realization. That night, I told him about Ryan's call. He didn't react with jealousy. Didn't interrogate me, just listened. "What did you feel?" he asked. "I thought about it. Closure," I said finally. He nodded slowly. "And now?" I looked at him. At the man who had once been just a stranger in a loud club. Now sitting in front of me, steady and patient. "Now I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The words surprised both of us. Because they were true. He stood slowly, walked toward me, and rested his forehead against mine. No dramatic confession. No grand speech. Just closeness. "I'm glad you didn't go home that night," he whispered. My chest tightened. "So am I." The stranger who stayed. Months passed. Seasons shifted. And what started as one impulsive decision became something intentional. He met my friends. I learned his routines. We fought once, a real argument, and worked through it instead of walking away. That was when I knew. This wasn't built on adrenaline. It was built on effort. One evening, as we stood in that same apartment where it all began, he looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen before. "You know what's strange?" he said. "What?" "If you had gone home that night, I probably would have forgotten you eventually." The thought made my chest ache. "But you didn't," he continued. "And now I can't imagine my life without you in it." Tears burned unexpectedly in my eyes. Because I realized something powerful. I didn't sleep with a stranger because I was broken. I didn't step into that night because I was weak. I did because I was done living small. And that choice led me here. To someone who didn't rescue me. Didn't replace anyone. Didn't fill a void. But met me exactly where I was. Sometimes people say, don't make big decisions when you're emotional. Maybe that's true. But sometimes, when everything falls apart, you finally see clearly. That night didn't ruin me. It rebuilt me. I slept with a stranger. But I woke up stronger. And the stranger? He didn't disappear in the morning light. He stayed. And sometimes, that's